Hello, this is Reindeer's Bees, and today we're going to talk about which is better, packages or nukes. So pretty much everyone on YouTube has made a video at this point about packages and nukes, which one's better, what they think. I figured I'd do my own take on this, and I definitely have an opinion one way or another on which is better, and I will tell you at the end of the video. So first, packages, pros and cons. So pros, they're much cheaper than nukes. They're just a lot less expensive. From what I've seen, at least $50, even as much as $100 cheaper than packages. They come a lot earlier in the spring since they're produced in the South. If you live in the North, you'll be able to get packages way before you'll be able to get nukes. In most cases, this isn't always true, but most of the time you can get packages before you can get nukes. I think one of the biggest advantages to packages is they grow slowly. Well, that might sound counterproductive, but I think it's great for beginners. Like if they have a package, they're going to grow slowly with the beginner, and it won't be too overwhelming for the beginner. And I think that's really important because with the nukes, it can get intense fast. So you are certain to get a first-year queen, and young queens are always better than older queens. So that's definitely an advantage to have a young queen. There's no chance of disease being spread via the comb because packages don't have any comb. So you don't have to worry about spreading disease via the comb. So the cons, they're much smaller. I know I said that was a pro, but it also can be a con. They grow way less fast than the nukes. They start out with 3 pounds of bees, which I've heard a million different numbers on how many bees 3 pounds is. Between 10 and 17,000, I think. And you have to feed them all the time when they're growing. Like if you're a first year beekeeper and you don't have any comb, you just have to feed the entire first year to get all that comb drawn in the packages because they don't come with any comb. They can not accept the queen in that package because like my first year, our first queen, she died. She was in between the frames. We didn't push the frames close enough together. So she fell to the bottom and the bees didn't cluster around her and she died. So our beekeeping journey did not start off well. The queen can die in transit or not be accepted. This goes with not growing as fast and starting smaller. It can take like over a week for the bees to get drawn comb drawn in their hive if they don't have any, if they're a package. And so that means the queen's not laying for at least that time. So if you do the math, even the youngest bees in the hive will barely be alive by the time the first brood hatches. So, you know, let's say those bees are 5 days old and they were put in the package the day they hatch. They'd be over, 40 days or over 30 days old by the time that first brood hatches. 7 days for them to draw the comb, let's say, and then another 21 for that brood to hatch. So it takes a long time. And then I think the biggest problem with packages is the queens are often not that great. So Cayman Reynolds has a lot of videos about packages and nukes. You should check them out. I'll link his channel below. He says about 8 out of every 10 package queens are good. The other 2 are duds and will just fail. So it's because they pull them out of the mating nukes too early. If they don't let the queens lay long enough, then they don't build up their pheromones sufficiently to be accepted in the new hive or just just lay well once they're in the new hive. And then the other issue is they make the queens so early that there's not enough drones for each of them to mate with, so they're just not mated well. All right, so pros and cons with nukes. Pros first. So they're way bigger than the packages when you first buy them. I think that nukes most of the time have at least as many bees alive in the package, like over 10 or 15,000, probably more. Plus they've got most have at least 3 frames of brood, which from what I've heard from more experienced beekeepers is close to 30,000 bees. So they got 30,000 developing plus at least 15,000 in the hive. So you get a lot more bees. The brood will hatch, throughout those 21 days because most nukes have some eggs, some larvae, and some capped brood. The queen's already laying. She's already accepted. They're not going to kill her randomly. And she's proven. She's already laid in that nuke for a good amount of time, depending on who you buy it from. She could have laid a whole season before, or she could have been laying for 3 or 4 weeks. But she's a lot more proven than a package queen that was only laying for a couple days before she was pulled and put in a queen cage and sent to put in a package. So they've already been, like, they already have feed. Most nukes will come with at least 1 frame of food. And doesn't mean you won't have to feed them, but they still, it's not like the packages where they just starve if you put them in on foundation. You know, they have some food in there. I found that, like, there's like kind of a critical date in the nuke's life where it just absolutely explodes. Like, generally, I think it's like 3 or 4 weeks after you install it, if it's a good nuke. I see that, like, they'll draw some comb and then bam, well, the honey flow hits and a lot of bees hatch and then they just explode. And so I don't see that happening as much with the packages. And then they're more likely to be able to split. So let's say you're buying nukes and you want to make more colonies. You want to have 10 colonies and you bought 3 nukes and you already have 2 or whatever. Those nukes are much more likely to be able to be split whether you put them in on comb or undrawn comb. They're just a lot stronger and they'll grow a lot faster than the packages. So the potential of diseased comb is a con. So here's all the cons for nukes. So when you have that comb that's being sold from another beekeeper, it could have been diseased and it could show up later as a problem in your colonies. You know, nukes are all about finding someone that you trust that makes a good product that's full of bees and that are healthy. So they can have an old queen. So like my second year, I bought 2 nukes. This is the first time I ever had nukes. And both of them had queens that were in their 3rd year, which from my experience, most queens don't make it through their 3rd season here in Maine. So those queens, they both died about the same exact week in early August. So they're both, you know, superseded. So I would suggest finding a nuke provider that doesn't give you older queens, because that can cause a problem later in the season. Both of those hives that requeened in August both died over the winter. So they're much more expensive. So that's the main drawback of nukes. I mean, they're at least $50, possibly even $100 more expensive than a package. Most places in the north, I think it's cheaper in the south. The cheapest you can find nukes is like $200 generally, and then the higher end is like $250 or $260. They can overheat and transport. So when you're taking your nuke back from your house, normally it's a ventilated box. But if you leave that nuke in your car or your truck for like a half hour while you go out and, you know, get some breakfast or something, it can be a huge problem because the bees can just overheat because they have no way to fan. They have no access to the outside of the hive because they're locked up in a box. And they come later in the season, so the nukes don't come as early as the packages. They come here in Maine, where I live, generally around mid-May to late May, early June, whereas we can get packages as early as like the 2nd or 3rd week of April. And the other downside, just like how you have to feed a package to draw comb, you're also gonna have to feed a nuke to draw comb. They still need some feeding, even though it may be less than the package. So I think that nukes are better. I haven't bought a package in years. I found a really good nuke provider, Swan's Honey in Albion, Maine. And I haven't bought anything else since. I mean, their nukes are great, so strong, they grow really fast, and I was able to split 2 colonies, 2 nukes that I got in early June, like the first day of June, into I think like 6 or 8 colonies by the end of the year. So they're really strong nukes and they're well worth the money, and they're also really cheap. I mean, they're the only nukes that I've found that are under $200. I think they're $175. And so I much prefer nukes. My last couple packages were duds, like the queens were superseded and not good queens, drone layers. So bad experience with them. Check me out on Instagram and Facebook at Reindeer's Bees, hit that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.